My name is Catherine Butcher, Marie Curie UNIKE PhD Fellow at the University of Roehampton, London, and I'm here at the UNIKE University's Futures Conference, which is being held at Copenhagen, Aarhus University. Joining me is Professor Oğuz Babüroğlu, who is the Professor of Management, Sabancı, Istanbul.
That's right.
Right. Thank you very much, Professor, for agreeing to sit with me for this interview.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah. So maybe we could start. First of all, could you tell me just a little about yourself?
Sure. I'm a scholar, an academic, but I'm also a practitioner. I joined these worlds through action research. That's my main engagement methodology with discovery of new knowledge. And action research, I came into this world as I was being educated myself in UK and US. I went to University of Sussex, University of Lancaster, and did my PhD at the Wharton School and worked with Fred Emery and Eric Trist. These are the pioneers of socio-technical systems design movement, and Tavistock School in the UK of human relations. So when I came back to my home country, late 80s, I started a consulting company at the same time as I was doing my academic work in the university, which introduced me to over 950 different situations in the last 25 years, all action research engagements, and almost all had some form of conferencing. Search conferences, decision conferences, dialogue conferences. So the dominant methodology that we are using in our action research engagements is search conferencing. And this means that we're bringing in stakeholders together of the social system, of the organization, the country, or a particular industry, depending on whose futures we're going to be co-designing and co-generating, which is what action research is about, towards, of course, more democratic organizations and more democratic forms of governance. And we've had ample examples of that, and some of which are published, of course. But I guess the reason why I'm at this conference is because I've helped around 30 universities to design their own futures, and 3 of which have been greenfield universities, namely designing from zero up 3 different universities. One effort started in 1995.
I think we will be talking about this in a little while.
Okay, yeah, so that is me.
Thank you very much. And I realized that you have had a very interesting career in as an academic, and as you said, involving action research. So what would you say, or what do you consider are the key trends in higher education today?
Well, there are a number, but let me say that the university, as we have come to know for the last 1,000 years, is probably going to be very different, and the trends for changing that have already started. The basic, I guess, change is coming from the society. Society is demanding more from the universities. it is not enough anymore to just train students or just to do research based on a small network of people around the world, but more and more the societal impact dimension of the university is coming to the fore. So society is more demanding, more relevant knowledge, and more new knowledge is being demanded for a number of reasons, because more and more competition is depending on new knowledge, and more the global challenges and intractable conflicts and so on require new solutions. And of course, the requirement for more technologies in information, communication, in life sciences, in the new industrial revolution that's called the 4.0 Internet of Things is the predominant technology that's pulling that revolution. So these are some of the societal trends. When you look at what's happening within the university, students are also demanding more relevance, and they're demanding to be more engaged, to be more involved with their learning process, and they want to be more active, they want more action-based, more problem-based, more project-based learning processes. So the classical teaching model of the professor departing knowledge and disseminating it to a large body of numbers of students, all sort of waiting to gobble it up, that model is bankrupt. So the classic lecturing model is bankrupt, and the content is easily reachable through internet. Its accessibility of information is not a problem anymore, and in whatever form. In fact, videos or other papers and primary even sources are available. And so the role of the professor is changing dramatically, because the students are no longer able to maintain their presence in the classroom. If their presence, their attention span while they're in the classroom, so there is significant pull from the students for new and different engagements. And that's going to come with a number of reversals, new technologies, instructional and educational technologies are being offered, and location-independent reach of content through massively online courses is possible, and of course there is flipped classroom applications where the classroom idea is one that basically there is reflection and discussion, not a departing of information by a professor, but a professor is becoming a facilitator, an engager, a motivator, which is a very, very different role compared to the past.
Okay, thank you. So, right, so now that you have said that, and I think you have already touched on some of the challenges, which is the next question I'm about to ask you. What challenges do you identify as central and the possibilities. What possibilities do you see for positive change?
Well, most of the challenges are going to come from the university as we know it. The university as we know it, I've started to describe it to you a little bit. The forms and the modes of learning is going to change. That puts a lot of pressure on the classical role of faculty. The faculty will have to surrender and share power, first and foremost with the students, but also with the rest of the society. So this new role of enabler, facilitator, and sharer of knowledge and co-generator of knowledge is a very difficult transition for most faculty. But for the university administration at large, there's another challenge, because the universities were organized around Tayloristic principles to cater large numbers. The classrooms were, the programs and the curriculum were organized around the principles of assembly line, reminiscent of a mass production system. So in a mass production system, the assembly line is typically linear and sequential treatment of whatever is going to be manufactured. And universities are pretty much organized that way, that the student goes into one classroom and then off to another and then off to another in a sequential way, more or less. And these classrooms are like stations in an assembly line, and they're treated in these stations. And then there's expectation that something meaningful at the end of 3 or 4 years comes out of it. And there is little attention to the integration of knowledge, because by and large, the approach to knowledge production has not been transdisciplinary. At best, it has been interdisciplinary, cross-disciplinary, multidisciplinary, but there is a new demand in order to understand and cope with the new challenges of problems facing and confronting the society, such as, for instance, migration, such as sustainability, global warming, such as depletion of resources, and so on and so forth, and of course financial crises, governance crises that many corporations as well as organizations, including the universities, but also a lot of nation states are failing. And we have a threat of Europe being dismantled. So when we are confronted with these kinds of problems, no single discipline is adequate to deal with it. You need a joint effort where disciplinary boundaries would have to change. So this new learning environment would have to be one at the same time of being a research environment as well as a problem-solving environment, so that you are no longer able to separate research, learning, and societal impact. The new forms of universities will have to cater for these mission areas to work together. So the key is, as in the assembly line, not to divide the subjects, not in disciplinary ways, and to put them in a sequential order where the student goes through one subject after another that's organized by disciplinary boundaries, and then hope that when they graduate they become useful either to continue the inquiry or to seek employment or to address some of these global challenges. It's impossible to rise to the kinds of challenges with the forms of university as we know it, that is based on Tayloristic principles.
Thank you very much. So I noticed here we spoke about greater involvement or a better relationship between, say, the students and academics, and you also mentioned the mission areas that should be working together. Having said that now, I am aware that you have been working on 3 universities from the bottom up, which seem to be very interesting. So would you now tell us how is it that these universities, how do they differ from the mainstream?
Yes. We have the luxury in Turkey of having a large number of new startups. Now, startups are popular all around the world for new wealth creation, and certain environments favor certain kinds of startups. For instance, Silicon Valley favors the kinds of startups that are technological, Facebook or Google or many of the high-tech companies are founded in that valley, the Silicon Valley. And certain startups like university startups are favored in Turkey because the last 20 years we've experienced about 100 or so new university startups. And of course that means that some of them can be very innovative or we can experiment with new forms of organization, new forms of learning, new forms of relationships with the society, with faculty and students and the like. So we've been fortunate to help 3 universities, as you mentioned. One that started in 95, between 95 and 99, there was an action research project, and the other one that was started at Sabancı University. The other one, Oğuz N University, started about 8 years ago. It's been in operation for the last 7 years, and we have started a third one, this time a state university, from scratch 3 years ago. Now, first thing is that Turkey is an environment which favors startup universities. Second thing is that with all new product development, you need some investment and some incubation in advance. And fortunately, 4 years of investment was made in a design process for Sabancı University, about a year for Oğuz N University, and about the third one is very interesting because it started as the operation offering courses, but it is also in parallel the design process has started too. So the next year is planned the year before pretty much. So investment in an incubatory period is very important, and all 3 have examples of the crossovers between research, teaching, and societal impact. Sabancı University is perhaps the one that has given the most tangible outcomes since 1999, since the first day of instruction outside of Istanbul, 35 kilometers outside of Istanbul on the Asian side of Istanbul. And there was a special curriculum design that enabled students to come in through 2 or 3 programs and to come out from as many different programs as possible. This was the initial, the input and the output requirements of the design. And the first year, everybody took the same courses. So there was a leveling effect of all the students who chose Sabancı University. The second year, they were starting to be familiar with the domains of knowledge. The third and fourth were completely designed by almost completely designed by the students. So it's a special design that enables a leveling of knowledge and then freedom of designing their own path. The faculties were designed in terms of both applied and foundational sciences. For instance, there's no engineering faculty, there's engineering and natural sciences faculty. There is no social science faculty, there's arts and social sciences faculty and the like. So that is the structure. And there are no departments in Sabancı University. There are only faculty domains and self-organizing faculty groups around their interests. Furthermore, there are a large number of centers where faculty, through engagement with stakeholders, industry, municipalities, government agencies, and the like, funded by these agencies or companies, form contracted research. And per faculty, Sabancı University in the last 12 to 16 years produced the largest contracted research per faculty. So from day one, the kinds of faculty who came here were the ones who wanted to make a difference, both in terms of making an impact in society and making an impact on a different kind of learning experience. The students were the same. The students, when they come, they do not know what they're going to become. They have some expectations, and they declare it, but they may enter in through, for instance, mechatronics and come out through cultural studies, or they may enter through visual arts, but come out through industrial engineering. So there is complete freedom, but there is also enabling in terms of content and process, so that they are able to do this. Every student has to do a community involvement project each year for 4 years. So the students are immediately put in communities, working with NGOs, working with villages, and the like. So the result is, in 12 years of operation, Sabancı University was ranked number 1 out of 193 universities in Turkey on an entrepreneurship and innovativeness scale that is administered by the Minister of Industry, Science and Technology. And that was the first year, 4 years ago. That was the first year it was administered, where Sabancı University was ranked number 1. The second year it was ranked number 2. The third year this ranking was administered, it was ranked number 2. And last year it was ranked number 1 again. So it's also showing some sustainability in terms of innovativeness and entrepreneurship criteria. That is the kind of impact you can make on a greenfield design university. Of course, our ambitions are higher now, with especially the latest design project, which is a state university in Kayseri, in the middle of central Anatolia. Kayseri is a very old city, one of the fundamental cities on the Silk Road, and the challenge there is to address global challenges. So it's a university designed to engage students and faculty and the society to address global challenges.
Yeah, good. So based on what you have just said, if I understood you clearly, you're saying that this university that you spoke about, Sabancı University, it's really academic led, and there is a lot of community engagement and of course public good that's taking place in the university.
Yeah, the important thing to realize and come to terms with is that Sabancı University is not a directional university. It doesn't excel just in research. It excels in a combination of research, teaching, and societal impact. No one window for evaluation, no one criteria is adequate. So we need to have different approaches to talk about how these things come together. For instance, in the US, in some of the big US universities, the notion of a lab is enticing to bring oftentimes research and societal impact or a project together, or a class with the society to do something based on action or problem based and so on. But to be able to combine all three, we don't find many examples of in the US. And this, by trying to combine all three, we, in different ways, of course, because you're engaging all the time. It's not a top-down design. It's not something that's waiting on the shelf to be used. It is co-generated through democratic means, involving as many stakeholders as possible. So the process of transformation is democratic. The governance of the university is experimenting to be democratic, and the classroom or the course experiences are also within each other, embedded in terms of undergraduates are also able to do research, but it's made meaningful because there's always a client system or a benefactory at the end, whether it is an NGO or a societal purpose, or whether it's a private corporation, or whether it's a government agency, municipality, and the like. There's always some sort of relevance to the kind of learning, to the kind of knowledge generation attached to every initiative.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Oğuz. I think we have exhausted our time, so I would like to thank you very much. This was really very informative. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Yeah, thanks.